Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a topic that is just absolutely crucial and honestly a bit overlooked. We're unpacking some brilliant insights from Chris Parsons on designing public sector AI. We spend millions of dollars and countless hours obsessing over how to implement AI, right? How to adopt it, how to get it running. But today, we're totally flipping the script. Public sector agencies are racing to integrate AI into their critical services, which makes understanding the long-term risks a total necessity. So we're going to look at designing AI systems that can actually survive if your supplier just fails. It's a massive blind spot for so many organizations, and we're going to break the whole shebang down step by step. Okay, let's dive into this. Check out this massive paradigm shift. The most important feature in an AI contract may actually be your ability to stop using it. It sounds kind of counterintuitive, doesn't it? Why in the world would we focus on stopping when we're just getting started? Right now, the whole conversation is hyper-fixated on adoption. How fast can we deploy these tools? How many users can we onboard? But here's the stark reality. Leaving an AI system, once it's deeply embedded into your daily operations, is actually much, much harder than adopting it in the first place. So I want you to really think about this for a second. If your AI supplier failed tomorrow, literally just vanished, went offline, or completely changed their terms, could your organization keep running? Seriously, imagine what that actually looks like on the ground. Would citizen requests just sit there unanswered? Would vital public benefits stop going out? Would your whole decision-making process just grind to a halt? It is a super uncomfortable hypothetical crisis, for sure. Most leaders naturally want to push it right out of their minds. But ignoring this possibility, that is basically a recipe for an absolute operational disaster. And that brings us straight to what we call the AI adoption trap. Look, for public sector leaders, well, really leaders anywhere, focusing solely on how fast we can deploy tools and unlock all that sweet productivity is a really dangerous trap. Adoption is literally just step one. If we only look at the speed of deployment without giving a thought to the safety and the longevity of our systems, we're essentially building a digital skyscraper on a foundation of sand. We desperately need to shift our collective gaze away from mere adoption and start focusing on actual rock-solid resilience. And this brilliantly illustrates the difference between two totally competing mindsets. The traditional adoption focus is basically a sprint. It's all about maximizing deployment speed, jacking up those user counts, and unlocking short-term productivity. But the resilience focus, that's a marathon. It's about effective replacement, preserving your institutional knowledge over the long haul, and making absolutely sure that essential work continues no matter what curveballs the market throws at you. True AI resilience isn't measured by how quickly you can roll out some shiny new tool. It's measured by how effectively you can replace a failing one while keeping everything running smoothly. Now, to really understand how to build that resilience, we first have to shatter a pretty common myth. Let's talk about the illusion of choice and the hidden AI supply chain. You might look at the AI market right now and see this massive, booming, crowded landscape, right? Dozens of vendors, hundreds of digital assistants, thousands of specialized apps. It's so easy to assume that this crowded market equals true vendor independence. You think you've got 100 different options, but honestly, they might all just be 100 different doors leading into the exact same hallway. Which brings us to a massive, massive vulnerability called concentration risk. This happens when an ecosystem appears super diverse on the surface, but underneath it actually relies on a very small number of shared hidden dependencies. So a single failure affects a ton of seemingly separate products. Think of it kind of like systemic risks in the financial sector. Regulators are constantly sweating that a failure in one obscure behind-the-scenes supplier could bring down multiple major banks all at once. Well, AI creates a very similar cascading risk. Your technical supply chain is likely way more concentrated than your procurement paperwork would ever suggest. Let's peel back the layers and look at what those hidden dependencies actually are. We're talking about foundation model families, cloud infrastructure, identity and security layers, data connectors, and orchestration frameworks, which are basically the invisible traffic cops directing all your data behind the scenes. You could go out and buy 5 totally different AI products, different brand names, different price tags, completely different user interfaces. But operationally, you might have just bought multiple routes straight into the exact same underlying failure risk. If they all rely on the same cloud host, well, a single outage takes down all your supposedly independent tools. Because of this incredibly tangled hidden web, boards and senior leaders have got to completely overhaul how they evaluate technology. It's just not enough anymore to ask which AI product you're buying. The true, fundamental question every single leader needs to be asking is, what are we becoming dependent on? We've got to map out those deep dependencies hiding behind our services. We need to move way, way beyond simple product assurance and step fully into comprehensive service chain assurance. All right, so once you figure out what you're actually dependent on, then you can start building some real defenses. And the absolute strongest, most rigorous test of your AI resilience strategy is model substitution and portability. Basically, this is your ability to swap out the very brain of your operation, say, moving from one foundational model to a totally different one without having to rebuild your entire service from scratch. And let me tell you, foundational models don't just swap out cleanly like AA batteries. They process logic and instructions differently, which is exactly why true portability is such a rigorous and demanding test. This really highlights one of the most critical aha moments you'll take away from this explainer: the difference between contractual exit and operational exit. Contractual exit, that's just your legal paperwork. It's your termination rights, data return clauses, notice periods. Your legal team might be high-fiving over a clean 30-day notice period. But meanwhile, your IT team could be living an absolute operational nightmare trying to actually reconstruct complex workflows, re-index knowledge, and reconnect systems in the real world. If you are legally free to leave a supplier, but practically unable to rebuild those workflows elsewhere, your exit strategy is quite literally just existing on paper. You see, when we normally think about data portability, we usually picture just exporting some PDFs or a couple of spreadsheets. But in the AI world, that view is dangerously narrow. You have got to secure your true AI assets. We were talking about your specific prompts, complex workflow patterns, and embeddings, which is really just a fancy tech word for how the AI maps out and understands your specific data. You also have retrieval configurations, audit logs, and evaluation results. These assets represent exactly how your organization has trained the AI to work in your unique context. It's your operational knowledge. If this stuff can't be moved and reused, you are totally locked in. They absolutely must be treated as strict architectural requirements. Okay, so we've talked about total supplier failure and the trap of vendor lock-in. But a massive catastrophic failure isn't the only threat on the horizon. Often, the real danger isn't a huge crash where all the alarms are blaring. It's actually a slow, insidious degradation of the service. When AI fails slowly over time, rather than just going completely dark all at once, it creates a very unique kind of operational paralysis. Navigating the scenario requires a totally different type of continuity planning and hyper-vigilance from your entire organization. Let's walk through what this actually feels like in practice, because it's essentially a frustrating cascade of degradation. First off, you might notice response times dragging. It just takes a little bit longer to get an answer. Then the output quality gets kind of sloppy. The model becomes inconsistent and maybe starts hallucinating facts. Finally, usage gets throttled, prices suddenly spike, or a key feature you rely on just quietly vanishes. Traditional IT outages are super obvious. A system is either up or it's down. But because AI is so deeply woven into our knowledge work, a slow degradation in drafting or decision support can be incredibly hard to detect until the damage is already totally done. Which leads us to a pretty uncomfortable question. Before you deeply embed AI into any critical process, you have to ask yourself, could your people still complete the task without it? Seriously, if the system degrades, does your team still have the muscle memory to just do the job manually? Now, I want to be crystal clear here. Asking for a manual fallback is definitely not an anti-AI stance. Not at all. It's a vital test to ensure we are preserving human competence alongside our new digital capabilities. The amazing productivity gains we get from AI are going to be incredibly fragile if we quietly hollow out our team's underlying capability to actually do the work. Preserving human competence, that's your ultimate insurance policy. So, how do we pull all of this together into something we can actually use? We need to pivot to the solution. The absolute best time to design your exit strategy is way before you adopt the tech. Trying to design an exit during a crisis, when systems are actively failing, lawyers are yelling, and the public is demanding answers, is just pure chaos. You need a blueprint right now. So let's look at an actionable framework you can use to design a resilient exit strategy from day one. So the crucial point is this definitive checklist. These are the 7 vital exit questions every single leader must be asking. Treat it like a conversation you're having with your team. First, which processes actually depend on this AI? And flip that. What hidden dependencies does the AI itself rely on? Then you've got to ask, can our assets be exported in usable formats? Could a model be substituted without a full-blown rebuild? What happens if the service starts to degrade? What manual fallback actually exists? And finally, how do we prove that operational exit is even possible? You've got to bake these 7 questions into your governance, your architecture, and your service design from the very beginning. If you take those questions seriously, it leads you straight to this incredibly powerful realization. Resilience is strategic freedom. Just really think about that for a second. The organizations that are best prepared for the AI revolution won't be the ones who are most dependent on it. They're going to be the ones most capable of surviving without it. Adopting AI without an exit design creates a really dangerous dependency that leaves you completely at the mercy of the market. But adopting AI with true portability, substitution, and continuity, that is what creates true, long-lasting strategic freedom. I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative question to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. Is your organization actually prepared to survive without its AI? Take a really hard look at your contracts, your workflows, and all those hidden dependencies we talked about today. Remember, an exit is not a failure condition. It's a feature. Thank you so much for joining me today as we explored this critical topic. Keep asking those tough questions, stay resilient, and we will see you next time.